We've got the dynamic and exciting Pat Grosse from England with us today. She's the community entrepreneur. We better find out what that means. Hi, Pat.
Hello, Gary.
How are you today?
I'm great. You?
Fantastic. Well, I've just made this comment to our viewer about the community entrepreneur. Who or what is that?
Okay. Now, the community entrepreneur is a concept that we put together when we actually decided that it's you, the people out in the community who have got the potential to do something great, and the whole concept of community entrepreneur is to give you the skills and expertise to be able to achieve your dreams.
Fantastic. By the way, we're filming this live at Planet Shaker, so there's a bit of activity here today. And of course, if Karen, your daughter, was with us today, she'd want to make sure that I cover off on all your areas of expertise. Let's start with the first one that you've become remarkably renowned around the world for, and that's Get That Grant. What's Get That Grant?
Okay, Get That Grant is a grant writing program, a self-paced program that I've designed based on 25 years of experience, both sides of the funding fence, not just here in Australia, but also over in the UK. And the Get That Grant program is designed so that you can to ensure that in any business or community organisation that is looking at grant writing, that there is expertise within the organisation. So it's not just left to one person or maybe outsourced. The whole idea of this program is that you can use it again and again. It's got self-paced templates. You can even use, the beauty here is you can even use real-life grant application processes, whether it's something that's happened in the past or whether it's something that's happening right now.
For our viewer right now, if he or she's watching this and is a one-person business, does this Get That Grant online program apply to him or her?
Well, yes. I mean, there's depending on what it is that you're looking for a grant for. Now, be mindful. A grant isn't a handout.
Right.
It's an investment.
Good point.
And so, if you're looking for something that's going to invest in the growth of your business, and it's going to be something that's going to be of economic benefit, or it's going to create jobs. Or it could be something in the community area that's going to have a social impact, a cultural impact. It could be sporting, it could be arts. There's a whole range of grant areas out there that you could be looking at as a business or as a community organisation.
For our viewer right now who may say, it's great, but I'm not a paperwork person, if I invest online and I get stuck, what do I do? I believe you've got a couple of options. One, they can do it on their own through your process and templates, and I believe you also offer a hand-holding experience. So tell us a bit about that.
Okay, I'm actually going through the hand-holding experience at the moment. I have got a community organisation. It's got a few members of staff, so it's not terribly small. And they've been through this program, and they're in the process currently of writing a very large application. So I'm actually providing that hand-holding exercise with them, and that means that and this is a service that I can offer with Get That Grant. So if you're not too terribly sure, then yes, we've got the option to provide 2 or 5 hours as part of the offering, or there could be an extra service that we can actually help and guide you to get your application to get it put together. We're also offering a training program. So you may, if you've got a few people in one organisation, or you may have a few colleagues out there who are also interested in grants, then we can actually also provide a face-to-face training program to complement the online program. But look, the whole online program is really there to help you to master the art of grant writing.
Excellent. And for our viewer right now, let's get him or her really excited. I believe you had some amazing success stories, one in particular where you helped raise $1 million for some philanthropic organisation. Share with our viewer a bit more about that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, look, currently I'm working with organisations at the moment who are working on $1 million grants and also on small grants. And look, I like to highlight this particular organisation because it was a very small organisation. And they were used to getting the small grants, the $1,000 grants, the 500, or putting in for a grant for 5 or 10,000 and resigning themselves to the fact that they probably are not going to get a lot, so they're putting in a very small amount. So they were never putting in exactly what they were entitled to, basically. So I was brought on as a grant writer to work with them, and we, first of all, we sort of were a little bit more ambitious with the small grants and applying for more, giving them the confidence to apply for more, and as a result, they were getting, slightly higher amounts than they would have expected. And as they then began to grow in confidence, we started looking at the $20,000, the $30,000, the $50,000 grants. And at that level, that's when you can really seriously start to employ staff. And so they were doing a lot of capacity building. It was a community grant, so they were out there being able to achieve some successes in the community. And then I suppose as you get more confident and you've got staff on board, that's got a compounding effect.
Yep.
So you then start thinking, well, can we do the bigger grants? There's something out there that we're really, really keen on and we really want to do, but it's only for the big boys.
Yep.
Well, no. I mean, this is why, this is where the community entrepreneur concept comes from, because there are some really great ideas out there and they're not reserved for the big boys. In fact, the more grassroots you are, whether you're a business or a community group, and the more inventive, the more innovative, that's where it comes, because it's like the necessity is the mother of invention here.
Yep.
So we started working with them, and we saw, had our sights on a grant that was $750,000. We had actually by that point had a series of grants that we're getting confident at, and we'd got about a couple of $250,000, something like that at the time. Well, and then we saw the big one, the one they really wanted. And amazingly enough, the way the grant guidelines were written were quite misleading. And it was it could have been read as a 3-year grant or as a 2-year grant. And we read it as a 3-year grant, and we actually got the full amount that we requested for, but for 2 years. So in essence, they got a lot more for a shorter time frame, but they actually got what they were asking for. And then, but for them, that also meant changes in the way their organisation operated.
Yep.
It meant that they had to become more professional. And one of the things about when taking that step from a small grant to a large grant is that professionalism, because it's going to completely impact on the way your organisation works, your staffing structure, your human resources, your health, workplace health and safety. You start to move from a sort of a cheap mindset to a professionalism. So whereas you would try to run things on the smell of an oily rag in the past,
yep,
you suddenly become more professional in what you're doing. And then we even used the large grant to leverage even more funding, because that allowed this organisation then to look very closely at its strategic planning, because it really had to, it did have a strategic plan, and it did have the focus of the large grant in its sights,
yep,
in the plan. But once they got the large project, they really wanted to consolidate. So they updated their strategic plan, and they were able to use it then, again, with leverage from the larger project to bring in more large funding. So before they know it, within a period of 18 months, they had gone from a small organisation that was really not bringing in the income that it wanted, to finding itself with $1 million in activity.
So for our viewer right now, there's some profound stuff in that comment and in that scenario. For our viewer, how did you gather all this information? Where have you got your expertise? Because I know it's across other fields. We just want to hear a bit more about you. Where did you get these skills to know what to write, how to write it, and to be completely compliant and within all these guidelines?
Okay. Back in the UK, I used to work within a university in a unit that was promoting the European Union. And it was at the time of the single market. So it was around about 1989 to 1992 when it was focused on harmonizing business for the single market. But we found that we weren't very good at getting bums on seats of businesses, but we did have an expertise in knowing how the European policy works. And in that, of course, is the funding instrument. So I remember, probably 1991, 92, I remember it was a cold December, I really do, it was a cold December day, it was something like the 7th of December, don't ask me why. And I remember we held our first EU funding for beginners workshop, and it only attracted, I don't know, half a dozen people. It was too close to Christmas, but it actually turned out to be one of our breadwinners. Really, it was just something, a cash cow in its way, that we developed. And then so okay, we were running these programs, and then a few years later, for my sins, I found myself employed, actually running a large, and I'm talking multi-million pound, training fund. And in that training fund, we had to set the systems up from scratch. But it was also, it was at the other side of the table, and I was working on behalf of the recipients of the grant funding. And the first things we had to do was to go and renegotiate, because however that application had been written actually didn't work in real life. So it was quite a learning experience for me. And so, okay, I sort of escaped, came to Australia.
Just before you came, didn't you go to another European country and had a very profound impact?
Oh well, look, when I was working in that unit, because we were promoting the European Union, one of the things we did was we would take professionals. It could be teachers, there could be medical or health, and we also at one point took some parliamentarians from a country at the time that was thinking of applying to join the European Union.
Wow.
So we took them on their fact-finding tour, which meant that we took them to the institutions, the Commission, the Parliament, the Courts of Justice, or sort of the embassy. We sort of gave them the whole flavour of how the structure of the European Union worked, to give them an idea. So I like to think that we had an impact on that country, because these were people who would go back and influence part of the decision making, which led to that country becoming a member of the European Union.
And that country is?
Sweden.
Sweden. So from this scenario, you then came to Australia, but I'm very keen to share with our viewer the levels of expertise. Apart from get that grant, you've got so many other skills that you've created through your experience. Share a couple more with us.
Okay. We put a lot of focus. Well, we put a lot of focus initially. Once I decided, can I just state that when I came to Australia, I found myself actually working for a funding body.
Right.
So I was at that side of the fence again. And I found that there were a lot of ideas that weren't getting accepted because they were badly written. So I would apply for funding. But a part of what was happening was I was getting a very, very good idea of how organisations work.
Yep.
Because, say, we were monitoring those organisations for contract compliance,
yep.
but also we had a role to help them at the time. And so I spent 3 years with a colleague where our role was to carry out audits of community organisations.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I certainly learnt, for the better, how those organisations work. So that's given me, and it also ties in with my own background knowledge and in things like strategic planning.
Yep.
So look, what we've been offering is a complete solution, and we've been offering, and businesses listen to this as well, because we've been offering strategic planning.
Yep.
We've been offering governance. We've been troubleshooting, and I've got a couple of those troubleshooting scenarios happening at the moment, as in within organisations.
Well, let's just talk about a couple of those things because they're very powerful. When we talk about strategic planning, it can be very quickly dismissed. But what do you mean by strategic planning? What do you bring to the table for an organisation that invests in you to help them?
Okay, for any organisation to actually grow, it actually needs to know where it's going.
Yep.
And therefore it has a destination. It really needs to think about how are you going to get there?
Yep.
What needs to be put in place? And it gets you to think seriously about your human resources. And puts your human resources in context of achieving those goals, not employing people for the sake of employing people. It looks at things like marketing, your finances, budget, all of those areas.
Yep.
So
if you're engaged into an organisation, small, medium or large,
yes.
and they ask you to help with their strategic planning, how
Yes.
does that start? Do you bring
Okay.
everyone together and do a
No.
brainstorming session?
Okay, first of all, I do actually meet with the key proponents,
Yep.
just to get an idea of what the context that they've. Obviously, the strategic plan could be on a regular basis,
Yep.
but sometimes it's prompted by an activity or something they need to do.
Right.
But one of the things that I do insist on is that we actually do the situation analysis. And by that I mean what's happening in the outside world, the demographics, the data, the policy, the trends, the competition, all those kind of features, so that you're not actually putting this together in a vacuum. And I've seen so many plans that have just been put together by a couple of people who really haven't done their homework. So we do all that and work with them, who are the clients. Then we get together and we'll do a strategic planning day at least.
Yep.
I think that's enough people can cope with at the time.
Yep.
But we certainly bring that data to the table, usually in advance of time, so that they can analyse the information and they've got a good idea of what the real trends are before they come into the meeting.
Okay.
We work through that because we'll get to the end of the day, we'll probably put together the key components of the plan, but we will have to come back again because you have things like, actually, okay, so what are the risks involved here? This other elements of the planning which have not been done, the implications for human resources, the implications for marketing, etc., etc. So, and it depends on the size of the planning exercise. If it's a multi-million professional organisation, they're probably going to want a little bit more time and dedication.
Yep.
A smaller organisation is probably going to want a certain time frame. But having said that, I do remember one organisation I worked with, and their board actually was pretty keen on keep coming back to look at the next stage and the next stage and the next stage, because they were really, really keen to get it right.
So just for our viewer right now, if he or she's sitting and listening to us,
Yes.
and saying, okay, what does a strategic plan mean to me? We're talking about think with the end in mind, come to the beginning, and then you help them create the outcome objective along the way for the outcome or the objective from beginning to...
Well, yeah, look, if you want to, what I say is, you can do this and you can do that activity and you can do that activity, but where's it going?
Yep.
All right? But if you put those activities together or with an end in mind,
Yep.
it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
And sometimes you'll find that the activities that you're doing are not actually your core purpose. So why are you doing them?
Okay.
And if an organisation, a business is going off track, it really needs to use that strategic plan to really bring it back to focus on what it wants to achieve.
Awesome. You mentioned too before about governance. What does governance mean? Apart from the obvious, in the context of what you said, what does it mean?
really about setting the direction of where the organisation is going.
Okay.
Being able to really have a good oversight. This is where the strategic plan comes in.
Yep.
Because they really need to have that plan so that they can actually monitor the activities that are being happening at the operational level, are actually there contributing to achieving the goal.
Okay. I know that recently you're being flat out at the moment doing research for certain clients. What's involved in that? What does research mean? Again, that's another project that you offer to a client. How and what does that entail?
Okay, we've just completed for 3 clients, 3 separate clients, but actually in a similar geographic area. We've just completed probably a training needs analysis, this was, but it was talking to and surveying probably about 160, 170 businesses in Northeast Victoria.
Right.
And yes, the focus was on providing feedback to training organisations about the potential and what their training needs are so that they can refocus what they're doing. We also had that sort of, okay, let's now look at what these businesses are looking for in the future. And it's very much future driven, not just about confirming what you already know.
So when you're engaged by a client to get that feedback, do they provide you with the names of the businesses that you'll speak to, or is that part of what you've got to do, go out there and find them and then do the questions and answers?
Well, we would go out there on a number of levels. The low-hanging fruit level, I suppose, is when you actually connect with the stakeholders. So it could be the chambers of commerce, the business organisations, the networks, local government, because they have a role. I mean, this is an example of doing something with businesses, researching businesses. Depends who the target group is. If you're researching youth, same idea. You start with the networks, and with those networks, you're actually building connections with your clients, because they, by being objective, you're allowing the stakeholder to give their honest feedback. That, once it's done, then leads to, and it's amazing how that works, a better connection with the client.
Yep.
And so we always make sure that we've got that level happening. And then we go right down to the businesses themselves, and it's door knocking. At the end of the day, some of these business networks really are struggling to connect with the whole of the business base.
Yep.
And we found that at the end of the day, it was door knocking.
It's amazing. It's profound stuff, compelling. Let's take a short break right now, because I'm sure our viewer wants to grab a cup of tea or a glass of water, and we'll do the same, and we'll be back to you real soon. Welcome back. Pat, it's amazing that I believe you like to get involved in partnerships. Just for our viewer right now, what does that mean?
Okay, I think like to get involved in partnerships is probably stretching it a little bit. What I've found is that over the years, I've been either involved in facilitating or monitoring of partnerships of different sorry, it's just a bit.
Yeah. Okay, we'll stop for a second.
There is
I
quite a bit of
apologise.
noise. Sorry.
I'll start again on that section. I'll just ask
Yeah.
about partnerships. Yeah, sorry. Just see if they're opening that door again. Excuse me? Just see if they're going to shut that door, please. Just tell me when we can start again. Okay. Welcome back. Trust you had a good break. So Pat, during our break, we spoke about partnerships. For our viewer right now, what does that mean to you?
Okay. Partnerships has been an interesting concept. The first time I actually came across it was a partnership back again in the UK. It was a transnational partnership. And it didn't quite go exactly as my manager had expected. And she was the lead, we were the lead agent. So there was obviously something, a little bit dynamic about partnerships. And then here in Australia, I've been involved at many levels within partnerships. And these have been partnerships where we facilitated, monitored, and in some cases I've done quite a level of firefighting, sort of conciliation. And so that really got me interested, because also lots of success. And in the role that I was employed in, certainly connecting our funded agencies with TAFE. And we got some really good innovative partnerships happening. And so I really, really enjoyed the concept of partnerships. And then, of course, those go horribly wrong, and yes, I've experienced those. I'm also aware of, partnerships go wrong in businesses as well.
Yep.
So I've, over the years, I've actually collected some resources, which I've put together now, and I'm putting together, just about finalised, the essential partnerships assessment toolbox. And the idea of this is that if anybody is thinking going into a partnership, whether it's a business partnership or a community partnership, doesn't matter, before they find out, before it's too late basically, is to really use this resource to analyse whether you're actually going to be a good fit for each other.
Yeah, great.
And whether you're actually on the same page.
Is that something that you facilitate, or is that just through your documentation and what you've created, the toolbox, the resources, people can again apply it themselves?
Yes, the toolbox they can apply themselves,
Yep.
but I'm also available to do the training on use of the toolbox as well.
Fantastic. I know too that you spend and invest a lot of time in marketing, helping clients do their marketing. What does that mean, again, in the context of your thinking?
All right. Like any business, you say about 5 years, a certain percentage of businesses are they go to the wall.
Yep.
Well, our business, probably around about year 4 mark, in 2013, we actually had a good year, but I also had the feeling that perhaps 2014 wasn't going to be as interesting.
Yep.
And so we set about basically 2 years of rebuilding our business model. And both me and my assistant have got qualifications in marketing, but we had to go right back to basics in the new paradigm. And we spent 2 years in the system basically, but it's been great, because we're now looking at our clients and we can see where they're still thinking in the old paradigm.
Yep.
So we've been able to assist our client base, which, as you know, has been community organisations. But what we have found, which has been very interesting, is that businesses are looking for the same marketing knowledge. And so we're now working more closely also with businesses. And I think what we've got to remember here is businesses, when we say we work with community organisations, businesses sort of go, whoa. But actually, I say to you, a community organisation can be $1 million business.
Yep.
And what we do is help to turn community organisations into more business-like operations to be sustainable.
Yep.
Well, isn't that what a business does?
Absolutely. You mentioned paradigm and the paradigm shift. So what are some of the things that you found in your research that, and now your clients, that businesses are looking for in their marketing? What are some of the things they need to do or want to do?
Okay, look, the easiest thing is people think, oh yeah, we need social media.
Yep.
But yeah, you need social media, but do you know how to use social media? Do you know how to nurture your client? Is your ideal client, or not even necessarily, people talk about ideal client, but let's look at your clients. Your client, what are their needs, what are their wants, where are they thinking, where they're hanging out? Being a little bit more intuitive and really understanding that client. It's not about selling these days, it's about understanding the client base. So we've done quite a bit of work in that area with the businesses that we've been working with. But it's not just about online media. And online media, if you've got a social media, it could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, it could be Twitter, they all work different ways. Connecting them with your website, and we say that the website is the window of your business.
Yep, the portal.
Yep. And if you're not, if your window or portal actually isn't inviting, and it's not generating leads for you as a business, and there are ways to do that. For instance, the contact forms, etc., to generate the leads. Then it's dead. But also, there's offline, and I think sometimes we tend to forget the offline marketing. And there's one client that we managed to instantly regenerate some income, some leads for him by recommending some tweaks on how he was using his Facebook, how he was using his website. That was immediate. But in a more longer term, we were able to look at his whole exposure with the client. So this guy was selling steel, great big steel tables.
Yep.
But he didn't actually have anything that actually identified where those tables were coming from. His trademark, his marking. So again, that is something that you can pick up. It's a marketing trick, and we know that because when we did some research for him,
yep,
people were saying, we went back to customers 5 or 6 years ago, and this is the reason why it's important you do your market research.
Yep.
Because clients were saying, oh yes, I remember, yeah, we still got that piece of, that table, but we don't know where we got it from.
So you're talking about really the importance of a brand.
Well, that's the brand, but I mean, it's really, and again, we looked at the whole process of upselling.
Yep.
Not just selling one product, but
yep,
actually how do you nurture to upsell, to keep them into the loop,
yes,
for the next products, etc. The other thing that we found was talking to people on Facebook, in Facebook groups, businesses who approached us saying, we want a grant. And basically, this is how it all started with the connection with businesses, was when I spoke to them, it wasn't a grant they wanted.
Right.
It was they wanted to know how to get their product out there, how they wanted to get recognised.
So one thing led to another,
Yeah.
and that's where a lot of your marketing
Yes.
skills and assets came from.
Yes.
Let's take a short break right now because there's a lot more we need to share. Welcome back. At our break just now, Pat, you mentioned you're passionate about evaluation. Why are you passionate about that?
Oh, again, it's that situation where you have these projects, these activities that have gone, they've used energy, they've used people, they've had their timeline, they've got to the end, and then afterwards, it's just a distant memory. And then, 2, 3, 5 years down the line, somebody comes along with this brilliant idea to do the same activities all over again.
Right.
And they're going to make the same mistakes, or they're not going to learn from them. Or it's just, I find that if you actually evaluate what you do,
yep,
and you plan how you're going to gather the evidence for that evaluation,
yes,
by the time you get to the end of it, you're not actually going to produce a report that's wanted for your bosses or for a funding body or whatever. You're actually going to A, learn and put that back into your organization's practices, or B, you've got a message that you want to get out there, so you then can use that to promote all the evidence that you've gathered. You've got data. If somebody says afterwards, you say, oh, this was a fantastic project, and you say, well, prove it. So you've got all this information that actually gives you the data to actually prove how successful you were. And the other area is, I've forgotten what the other area is.
That's right. So, because the evaluation, I think you just made a very profound point. We sometimes do all this work and we don't capture the data, and then we have to reinvent the wheel. Excellent way of just putting that forward. I know that you've now, because of some of your research development, the work you've put in over all these years, you've now created workshops for people. Tell us a bit about your workshops.
Okay. I've got workshops experience on a number of levels.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I'm going back to the UK, and it just feels like I've lived 2 different lifetimes in one lifetime.
Wow.
And in that one, it was my job to organise conferences and to organise workshops. And I didn't actually realise how good I was at them because it was my job. In fact, I suffered burnout from it because it was too much of it. Since coming to Australia, I found that if I needed to organise a forum or any kind of briefing, I would make it very interactive.
Yep.
And now I'm now sort of stepping out of the shadows again, and I really am passionate about creating workshop experiences for people, because sometimes just watching something or reading something isn't going to cut it really.
Yep.
You need to actually go out there and not just listen to somebody speaking at you, but to get actively involved. So for instance, the grant writing workshops.
Mm-hmm.
Again, based on my experience, they're very interactive, so that you're actually learning and doing as you're going along. So you're learning, okay? Project management. I've developed and delivered project management training across the UK.
Okay.
The partnership toolkit, that's something else that I want to get back out there by workshopping. So I'm quite an interactive person.
Yep.
Not just getting out there and just telling people. And it's the same way I do when I work with people, when I mentor people, is actually to guide them through the process. I mentioned earlier that I'm working with an organisation who's been through the training program. They get that grant.
Yep.
I am guiding them through the process of putting together their first application, which is a huge one, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles for them. But that's what I like to do. So face-to-face, or using different techniques to really get to embed the process, because it's just basic adult learning principles. We all learn different ways.
So just for our viewer right now, if he or she's saying there's some things, some touch points that they've tuned into, listened that you've said, wow, I need your help. Mm-hmm. You're saying, as I understand, that there are workshops for all the different things we've discussed.
Yes.
And how do people then get you to create a workshop for them? Is it something you do on a public basis and invite people, or is it a workshop where you'll happily run a workshop for 1, 2, 500, 1,000, 1 million people?
Yeah, I mean, look, as I mentioned before, developing and organising workshops is second nature.
Yep.
So I can come into an organisation and develop a customised workshop,
yep.
work a customised workshop for the goals that organisation wants to achieve.
Yes.
And yes, public workshops is another way. So.
Excellent. And I also know that you're now on the speaking circuit, so if people want to access you here in Australia or maybe somewhere else in the world, you're now on that platform. What are some of the areas of expertise that you share in your platform speaking?
Okay, again, it's really to get the message across with regard to some of the areas that I've spoken about.
Yep.
And really, look, partnerships is one that I really want to get into, because I really want to get the message across about, how to, well, not why partnerships fail, but what are the likely conditions of partnerships not working, okay? And then sort of really to get the message across. It's really, I'm sorry, it sounded a bit waffle here, but it really is to get a message across. Yeah, partnerships. Certainly, I'm looking at the moment at some of the business networks. As I mentioned before, business think they need marketing, they think they need social media, but what do they really need?
Yep.
To get those kind of messages that I want to get across. It's not just the flavour of the day, but let's get underneath the skin here.
Okay.
And yes.
So you're possibly watching this right now on or accessed Pat and Karen's website, or in fact maybe you've been sent this snippet somewhere. If you're interested and excited about what Pat Grosse, Karen and her team and their team can do for you, make sure you make contact with them, and I believe the information's at the bottom of this video. And what or how do you want people to contact you?
Look, we've got a number of ways. You can actually access through our website, thecommunityentrepreneur.com, or you can, if you're in Australia, you can contact us on 03 9005 5889, and you'll get one of us.
And if they're in England or in somewhere other country, because you're now global,
yeah.
I guess they can email you. Your email is?
Oh yes, definitely. It's look, if you send it to support at thecommunityentrepreneur.com.
We'll make contact back?
Oh, definitely.
Great.
Yes.
Pat, it's been exciting and inspirational. Thank you for your time today.
No, thank you, Gary.
Now, I don't know how, I think, give me the thumbs up. Pat, I believe you're about to hit the speaking circuit too. In what areas do you present on the national and international stage now?
Okay, yeah, basically in any of the areas that we've discussed today,
right.
It all depends on the brief that we're given.
Great.
And I'm up for a challenge.
Great, so in other words, when a client engages you, you find out from him or her exactly what they're looking to achieve.
That's right.
And then across your field of expertise, you'll speak accordingly.
That's right.
Fantastic.
And just to give you an idea, if you actually looked on my LinkedIn, I've actually got some articles.
There you go, articles on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And the articles are about?
Again, across the areas that we've been talking about today.
There you go, you're getting all this extra value. And by the way, if you would like to engage Pat, Karen and her team, make sure you call her hotline, email her, access her website. So for our international viewers right now, how do they connect with you?
Oh, that's easy. Just email us on support@thecommunityentrepreneur.com.
And for our people in Australia, your phone number?
03 9005 5889.
Great. And you may be watching this right now on Pat and Karen's website, so you can access all the other goodies accordingly. And if not, the website address is?
www.thecommunityentrepreneur.com.
Fantastic. We're really grateful for you investing time to watch and hear and listen to what Pat's got to say. If you've been touched by some of those points, make sure you make contact. I know for a fact they can help you get that grant and many other things. So stay tuned and enjoy.